Hi, Sherry, this is Beth. Can you test your mic so we can make sure we can hear you okay?
Hi, Beth. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
You're welcome.
Clinton, I'm going to check with you. You just signed on. Can you check your mic for us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Is all the way up. Then when we start, you just need to unmute the public.
Half a minute. Okay. It is now 7 o'clock, and I will call the meeting to order. Can I please get a roll call?
Vice President Anderson.
Here.
Councillor Blakely.
Here.
Councillor Forbeck.
Here.
Councillor Keys.
Here.
Councillor Levy.
Here.
Councillor Preschel.
Here.
President Duncan.
Here.
All councillors are present.
Can everyone please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Under item 3 this evening, there are 2 proclamations. 3A is a proclamation recognizing July as Park and Recreation Month. It has been requested that I read it. Whereas park and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including here in Beloit, Wisconsin. And whereas our park and recreation activities are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all residents, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region. And whereas park and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all residents. And whereas park and recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of a local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas park and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community. And whereas park and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas since 1985, America has celebrated July as the nation's official Park and Recreation Month. Now, therefore, the City of Beloit President does hereby proclaim the month of July 2020 as Park and Recreation Month in the City of Beloit and encourages residents to get outside, explore local parks, and enjoy outdoor activities. Adopted this 6th day of July 2020, Regina Duncan, President, Beloit City Council. Under item 3B this evening, we have a proclamation declaring July 12th through 18th, 2020 as Local Library Week. Whereas today's libraries are less about what they have on the shelves and more about what they can do with and for their communities. And whereas libraries have long served as trusted and treasured institutions where people of all ages, interests, and backgrounds can come together and learn alongside one another. And whereas libraries of all types are at the heart of their cities, towns, schools, and campuses. Libraries offer members of their communities welcoming spaces and opportunities to explore new passions through technology, programs, and services. And whereas libraries and library workers help patrons find tools to help improve the quality of their lives, libraries which promote the free exchange of information and ideas for all are cornerstones of democracy. And whereas libraries strive to develop and maintain programs and collections that are as diverse as the populations they serve. And whereas libraries and their staff members work to create an equitable society by providing free access to accurate information to all people. And whereas libraries are a resource for all members of the community regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status, by offering services and educational programming that transform lives and strengthen communities. And whereas Beloit Public Library works to be a place for citizens to enhance, enrich, and explore. And whereas libraries, librarians, library workers, and supporters all across America should be celebrated for their value to their communities. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council for the City of Beloit hereby proclaim local library work July 12th through the 18th, 2020. During this time, we encourage residents to visit the library, a place where we can all belong and discover who we are. Because of you, libraries transform. Adopted this 6th day of July, 2020. Regina Duncan, President, City Council. Under item 4A in public hearings, we have Resolution 2020-97, amending a planned unit development master land use plan for the property located at 2311 Winchester Drive to reduce the street side setback from 30 feet to 15 feet to allow the construction of a single-family home.
Thank you very much, Clerk Stotler. And I just want to go back up and just say thank you to, like to ask everyone to please join me in recognizing our city staff, namely our Parks and Recreation and Library employees, because we kind of just went so fast after those proclamations, and we certainly want to recognize them. Thank you very much. Next, we have our Community Development Director, Julie Christensen, who will provide an overview for us today.
John Kanabi of Acadia Homes has submitted this application for planned unit development. This particular property was subdivided and improved as part of the Walnut Grove planned unit development, which established a minimum front and street side setback of 30 feet. That PUD plan, there's an amended plan within the packet, but that's generally the layout of the plan that was approved in the past. The subject property is 80 feet wide by 141 feet deep corner lot, and the applicant has proposed the construction of a new spec home with an attached garage and driveway facing Deer Path Way. Included in your packet is a site plan which shows the detail of that new spec home and how the setbacks would be, and the garage and the deck. The front of the proposed home will face Winchester Drive and will meet the minimum 30-foot setback as shown on the attached site plan. John recently started his own construction company, and he has accepted offers to purchase and develop spec homes on several of the remaining lots in the Walnut Grove subdivision. Work has already started on 2 of these spec homes, and then this would allow him to do another spec home, which we are very excited about having another new home in Beloit. Planning Commission reviewed this item on June 17th and voted unanimously to recommend approval, subject to the conditions which are in the resolution that's before you tonight, which is that the applicant shall obtain all required building permits and commence construction of a home on the subject property within 1 year of this approval. The maximum driveway width shall be 20 feet as required by city ordinance. Although all other requirements of the original Walnut Grove PUD approval remain in full force and effect. And then the standard condition of major changes coming back through this public process and minor changes being approved administratively by staff. And this is on your agenda for action tonight.
Thank you, Julie. At this time, the public hearing is open. Would the clerk treasurer please provide any public input received?
I did not receive any public input on this item.
Would anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposed please come forward at this time? The public hearing is now closed. Can I please have a motion to approve the resolution? Is there a
Mark Rachel, I'll make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Mark Preschel, by Councilor Preschel. Is there a second?
Nancy Forbeck, second.
Okay, second by Councilor Nancy Forbeck. Now I will go down the list of councilors. Vice President Anderson, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No, I do not.
Councilor Blakely, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No, thank you for asking.
Councilor Forbeck, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
Just to agree with Julie Christensen saying we need this new construction of single-family homes, so I'm very pleased.
Thank you. Councilor Keys, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No, thank you.
Councilor Levy, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No.
Councilor Preschel, do you have any questions or
No, I do
discussion
not.
on the motion? Okay, at this time, there's a motion and a second to approve the resolution. I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Vice President Anderson,
Aye.
Councillor Blakely,
Aye.
Councillor Forbeck,
Aye.
Councillor Keys,
Aye.
Councillor Levy,
Aye.
Councillor Preschel,
Aye.
President Duncan.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Item 4B is a resolution 2020-98 approving a planned unit development master land use plan for the properties located at 1405 Cranston Road and 2213 Advance Drive.
Our Community Development Director, Julie Christensen, will provide an overview.
Midwest Construction of Northern Illinois, on behalf of Enterprise LLC, has submitted this planned unit development. They are requesting multiple buildings on one combined parcel, which is why they need a planned unit development. They will be adding a building along with the existing car wash facility and attaching land that is currently to the north. The properties are zoned C3, and they will apply to be rezoned to PUD if this is approved. They are seeking this approval because of the multiple buildings on one site, but also in order to provide greater flexibility in building location. The permitted uses within the PUD, if approved, would include a 4-stall manual self-service car wash, 1 automatic drive-through car wash, and then C3 commercial uses in the existing commercial building. 30-foot setbacks must be maintained from the PUD district boundaries, and a landscape strip is required along the portions of the perimeter of the planned unit development located adjacent to the public streets. The self-service car wash must provide 3 stacking spaces from the entrance and provide 4 stacking spaces for the automatic car wash stall from the entrance. The site currently has adequate number of parking spaces. The final PUD site plan, which will follow, so the first step is the master plan approval, which is on your agenda tonight. The second step is the rezoning to PUD, and then the third step is it's the final PUD plan, also known as a site plan, shall comply with access changes requested by the fire inspector, which were outlined in the staff report behind this council report. The existing driveway on Cranston Road should be removed. Depressed curb must be removed and replaced with barrier curb, and driveway pavement within the right-of-way should be removed and replaced with grass. Sidewalk across the existing driveway on Cranston needs to be removed and replaced to the east property line. The existing sidewalk curb ramp at the intersection of Cranston and Advance needs to be removed and replaced with a curb ramp that meets the requirements of the Public Right-of-Way Accessibility Guidelines, or PROWAG. Plan Commission did review this item on June 17th and voted unanimously to recommend approval. The Plan Commission chair noted that he thought this was a very, very positive development because we were going to see some removement of pavement, some driveways, additional landscaping, which will be a nice addition at this corner of Cranston and Advance. And the resolution before you tonight includes several conditions, which are that this approval authorizes the addition of 1 automatic car wash stall to the 4 existing manual stalls, the continued use of a 644 square foot building with C3 community commercial uses, maintaining 30-foot setbacks from all PUD boundaries, the installation of a landscaping strip installed on PUD boundaries that are adjacent to public streets with code-compliant stacking spaces as shown on the attached plan. The design standards shall be those that apply in the C3 Community Commercial District in regard to lot size, setbacks, height, and building coverage. And the final site plan shall comply with the access changes requested by the fire inspector and the engineering improvements. A zoning map amendment must be submitted prior to issuing site plan approval. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall obtain site plan and architectural approval, which shall include a detailed review of all site, grading, utility, landscape, and lighting plans. All of the attached review agent comments shall be addressed prior to or during the site plan review process. And then our standard condition of any major changes coming back through this public process and minor changes being approved administratively. And Plan Commission did recommend approval subject to those conditions.
Thank you, Julie. At this time, the public hearing is open. Would the clerk treasurer please provide any public input received?
I did not receive any input for this item.
Thank you. Would anyone else wishing to speak in favor or oppose, please come forward. The public hearing is now closed. Can I please have a motion to approve the resolution?
Blakely, so moved.
Moved by Councilor Blakely. Is there a second?
Second, Nancy Forbeck.
Second by Councilor Forbeck. Now I will ask the councilors. Vice President Anderson, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No, I do not.
Councilor Blakely, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No, I don't.
Councilor Forbeck, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No, I do not.
Councilor Keys, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No, thank you.
Councilor Levy, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No.
Councilor Preschel, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No, I don't.
Thank you, councilors. At this time, there's a motion and a second to approve the resolution. I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Vice President Anderson.
Aye.
Councilor Blakely.
Aye.
Councilor Forbeck.
Aye.
Councilor Keys.
Aye.
Councilor Levy.
Aye.
Councilor Preschel.
Aye.
President Duncan.
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. Item 4C is a public hearing to solicit input on the community development, housing, and homeless needs in the city for inclusion in the 2021 Annual Action Plan.
Thank you. Our Community Development Director, Julie Christensen, will now provide us with an overview.
Each year, we're required to have a public hearing to solicit input on housing, homeless, community development needs for inclusion into our annual action plan. Those will then be used as part of the plan and which will be submitted to you in November for your consideration. They will also be considered as applicants apply for the CDBG funding later this year. And we'll also add additional information in terms of setting your local funding priorities, which are the next item on your agenda. No action will be taken tonight. It's just an opportunity to hear any comments on those needs.
Thank you, Julie. At this time, the public hearing is open. Would the clerk treasurer please provide any public input received?
I'm uncertain of any input on this. I do have one public comment on homelessness, but because I'm not sure it pertains to this item, I'll read it under public comment.
Okay, I would appreciate that.
Could I give a comment verbally?
Just a second. We'll get to that in just a moment here.
About homelessness.
Okay. Oh, you want to speak to that? Sure, you can come forward.
Thanks.
And if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Pastor Dave Fogderud from the Overflowing Cup. We're located at 1175 Madison Road. As this item was on the agenda, I thought it would be appropriate to throw a comment in because we work with homeless people all the time, and we are the ones that had the Harbor for the Homeless years ago. A lot of changes over the years. But it sounds to me like there's some kind of money available. If there is, I highly recommend some kind of, I'll be happy to be involved. We got a lot of ideas, and many times I get homeless people they always call us after 5 o'clock. I don't know why that is. So we have to put them in motels. So there needs to be more money available where we can screen people and where we can actually place them in a motel or another shelter, whatever is appropriate. And like I say, we've been doing this since 1974. So if you have questions about homelessness, feel free to contact the Overflowing Cup, 608-365-0365, and ask for Pastor Dave or whoever I put in there. That's what I want to say about the homeless.
Thank you, Pastor Dave.
Thank you.
I'm glad to get your input. I'm smiling, but you can't see with the mask on, so. Yes. Okay. Would anyone else wishing to speak in favor or oppose, please come forward at this time?
Madam President, will councilors have a chance to comment after that?
Yes, you will, pretty soon. We're going to go down.
Thank you.
Okay?
And just to clarify, Sherry, this is the public hearing on item 4C, and you will be taking action somewhat related on 4D, but there's no action specifically for 4C this evening.
Thank you, Lori. I understand. I just wanted to thank Pastor Dave for being here and for the efforts that he's made over these many decades to help the homeless in Beloit. And I wanted to say thank you to our staff for the hard work they put forward on this concern for some of the residents in our city. Not everybody is lucky enough to have a stable home. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Blakely, for that comment. The public hearing is now closed.
Item 4D is consideration of Resolution 2019-106, adopting the 2021 Community Development Block Grant Local Funding Priorities.
Our Community Development Director, Julie Christensen, will provide a report at this time.
So HUD recommends that cities who receive Community Development Block Grant funds to set local funding priorities to help guide your decision-making when you do request applications from nonprofits, so that to help guide your decision-making. And so that is what's on your agenda tonight. Outlined in the staff report was some of the needs that were identified as we went through the 2020-2024 consolidated planning process last year. And so there's a number of needs that were identified over a series of meetings. And then in addition, there were 2 listening sessions, one in the Hackett neighborhood and one in the Merrill neighborhood, which were then also incorporated into the NARSA plan that was approved last year. And based on that information, we're recommending the following funding priorities. The first is public service programs that provide comprehensive case management services with priority given to supportive housing programs, resource navigation, advocacy, education and life skills, job training, transportation, stable housing, and activities which meet one of the NARSA objectives. Code enforcement, housing rehabilitation, public facility improvements, fair housing, economic development, with specifically micro enterprise, which is businesses that have 5 or fewer employees, and small business support. Once you approve your funding priorities, they will be incorporated into the Community Development Block Grant application that will be available later this month. And then people will provide applications that would meet one of those funding priorities, and then we will take those applications to CDA for their preliminary review, and then ultimately that will come back before you with a budget proposal and a plan proposal for next year, with a public hearing in October and then final approval in November. But this is the first step in the Community Development Block Grant process, which is establishing the local funding priorities. And I wanted to apologize for the last 2 pages, which specifically refer to the city of Janesville. I heard from 2 councilors about that. And essentially when this plan is developed, Janesville is the lead entity for our home consortium. And as a result, HUD puts us together as one group also for CDBG. And so there is data that is auto-filled in from HUD's, from its census sources, but it's the data source that HUD picks. And it includes all of Rock County. So those numbers are representing all of Rock County, not just Beloit, which in the future we'll try to bring you the numbers just for Beloit, put the pages in so you can see the Beloit numbers. But if you want to find the Beloit numbers, they are in our consolidated plan, which you can find on the website. And if you want to look that up later, you can find it in the November 4th agenda, but we also have it on the website on the community development page. So if you do want to see that information at a later point in time. But this is the first step in the CDBG process for 2021.
Thank you very much, Julie. At this time, the public hearing is open. Would the clerk treasurer please provide any public input received?
I did not receive any public input on this item.
Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposed? If so, would you please come forward at this time? The public hearing is now closed. Can I please have a motion to approve the resolution?
Nancy Forbeck, I so move.
Okay, moved by Councilor Forbeck. Is there a second?
Councillor
Vice
Keyes,
President
second.
I believe it was a second by Vice President Anderson. Now we will go down the list for councilors to give questions or comments. Vice President Anderson, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
Just a comment. I just wanted to echo what Councilor Blakely said. I know this is a tough set of topics to try to solve and try to prioritize the funding, especially with limited money. So I just really want to thank Julie Christensen and the staff there for taking this step and starting the process. Thank you.
Councilor Blakely, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Councilor Forbeck, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No.
Councilor Keyes, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No questions, thank you.
Councilor Levy, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No questions.
Councilor Preschel, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No questions.
Okay. And I had a couple questions, but Julie answered those earlier. I had asked about the current data from 2015 because that's what was listed in our packets, and then also about the impact that COVID-19 may have on the allocations. And so I think those are pretty much you are taken care of, Julie. So thank you. At this time, there is a motion and a second to approve the resolution. I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Vice President Anderson.
Aye.
Councilor Blakely.
Aye.
Councilor Forbeck.
Aye.
Councilor Keyes.
Aye.
Councilor Levy.
Aye.
Councilor Preschel.
Aye.
President Duncan.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Item 5 is public comments. I have one submitted public comment this evening.
Okay, can you go ahead? and read that?
Yes. So this is from Megan Miller, 1811 Vista Drive, Beloit. Subject, homelessness. Thank you for taking the time to read my comments. One of the barriers to permanent housing and employment is affordable childcare. Wisconsin has been in a childcare crisis for a long time, and particularly in the time of COVID. Safe and affordable childcare is critical for health and employment. Beloit would be in better shape if we had more people owning homes than renting. People can't often afford to buy homes without steady employment, and childcare costs can be huge. I would love to see the city call upon local employers to offer on-site childcare or provide childcare credits to use in this community. I think we need to look at the barriers to home ownership and utilize private-public partnerships to make a concerted effort to make home ownership in Beloit a possibility for all people. There's more to helping people out of homelessness. We need to look at removing barriers to jobs like a Ban the Box initiative, providing affordable quality childcare, and providing better second and third shift transportation, as well as possibly more public Wi-Fi so we can level the playing field. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments at this time? If so, can you please come forward? Can you please state your name and address for the record, please?
You betcha. My name is Pastor Dave Fogderud with the Overflowing Cup, and I thank you for letting me share just a couple thoughts, a few very short time tonight. But and a lot of people know who the Overflowing Cup is, but a lot of people don't. And we just celebrated 46 years. We opened in 1974, and that's a long story, and I won't go into it. But what I did want to just invite everybody once to come out and see what we're doing. We were always downtown. For the first 40 years, we were located in downtown Beloit. And for the last 6 years, we've been on 1175 Madison Road, which is the old Caritas building, across from the Dog World. So you're always welcome, especially Saturday and Sunday nights. We also have recovery on Wednesday nights, and there's other things going on as well. We do work with a lot of people in recovery. Unfortunately, it's a big issue. Drug, alcohol issues are really serious. But one thing we've done over the years, we've always had music. We're a music venue. We've had some of the finest musicians in the world have come to the Overflowing Cup. We're kind of a best-kept secret, and I don't want to keep it that way. But one thing we have done every year, to some extent, is have an outdoor concert or concerts. We did that in 1974. And about 25 or 30 years ago, we started calling it Rock on the Rock. And just one quick story. It's much more than entertainment, although it is entertaining for the whole family. But just as an example, we're really there to reach people where they're at. And the first year we had a outdoor concert in Horace White Park, and it was a Christian rock and roll concert, but the music got the attention of a lady coming from Beloit College. She was a professor's wife, and she was so depressed she was going to go jump in the river. Well, she heard the music, she came over, the ladies ministered to her, and she gave her life to the Lord, and she became one of a very successful businesswoman in Beloit over the years. And I just thought I'd share that. That's what we're there for, is to help people who are in need in whatever it is. There's other stories I could tell you later. But anyway, Rock on the Rock is a 2-day festival that we do, and we have sweet corn and lots of good stuff for the whole family, but we've done it every year. And because of the COVID situation, we've decided to take a break this year, even though we've got the necessary okay from the city. We're on the list. We got the park reserved and all that. We're not going to do it in the park this year. We might do a lot of music that weekend, which is August 8th and 9th. We just will do it over at the Overflowing Cup this year. I don't know why we're making that change, but we're just going to kind of cooperate. The city's canceled a lot of things, so we're just going to take a break on the park activity and maybe next year we'll be back in business. I hope things will be a lot better next year. And so we'll reserve the park again for next year, and possibly a second time to kind of make up for what we had to lose this year. But I just wanted to share that we've decided to go ahead and postpone or cancel the public one down at the river. I don't know why, because things could be a lot better, but it takes time for this crazy epidemic to get over, and so we don't want to put people at risk any more than necessary. But I just wanted to share that with you, a little of the history, and I don't know. Rock on the Rock is a pretty big attraction, but it doesn't get the attraction that Harry's Place does. We don't have thousands of people, but we usually have hundreds of people, and we have a good time, so I invite everybody to keep in touch with the Overflowing Cup as much as you can. One of the guys that is kind of coordinating the event, and he's done a lot of work, is Daryl Garrettson. Come up here, Daryl. Stand by me. Daryl, I'm considering him like a coordinator because he's done so much work on the Rock on the Rock to make it happen, but we're also flexible. So I would like you to meet the rest of our staff at a later time. But I guess that's pretty much all I wanted to say tonight, except that when you talked about homelessness earlier, if I can be of any help, please. We're working with homeless people every week, and so if nothing else, I'll have some ideas, or maybe we can work together in that area. So I look forward to that, and you can reach me anytime. But Daryl, did you want to share a couple thoughts?
Can you state your name and address for the record?
Daryl Garrettson. Right now I'm just staying at the Motel 6. Well, the reason why we had decided this year is because of the epidemic, like Pastor Dave said. Not only that, it's just a lot of work, and we just ain't got the time to get it together in a month. It'd have to be a miracle, that's for sure. And a miracle, I mean, everybody's not been well. Dave and Diane have been sick. which I'm glad they're getting better. But the staff is just kind of, there's no way we can do it in this short a time. So we'll just shoot for next year.
So thank you, Daryl. I just wanted to thank Daryl publicly because I don't know anybody that can coordinate like he does and put in the effort. So anyway, I don't know what else to say except thank you for letting me share a few thoughts. And those who don't know who the Overflowing Cup is, there's so many young people around here, you know, the whole generation is changing. But we're also trying to reach this generation of young people. So anything we can do to help this community, that's what we're here for. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pastor Dave, and thank you, Dave, for being here, Daryl, for being here tonight, and for your input. It's very appreciated.
Thank you.
So thank you, and thank you for what you're doing for our homeless population. Much appreciated. And then I also want to thank Megan Miller for her input, and we encourage people to please give your public comments. Next, I've moved item 12A up on the agenda. Can I please have our city manager, Lloyd Curtis Luther, to provide a brief overview?
Item 12A is consideration of Resolution 2020-103 related to COVID-19 prevention and control in the city of Beloit.
Thank you. Wisconsin set a new single-day COVID-19 case record this past Saturday, July 4th. State health officials reported 738 new confirmed cases over a 24-hour period. That number surpasses the previous high of 733 cases over a 24-hour period that was set on May 29th. Saturday's number of new cases also represented a 10.8% positive of all tests that were recorded that day, and the highest positive case percentage over the past 14 days. And in Beloit, as of today, there were an additional 19 cases compared to a week ago. That is a cumulative total of 503 of the approximately 935 total in Rock County. So while the percentage of the total positives in Beloit has come down slightly to 54% from 57%, and that's due to the fact that the rest of the county is now reporting higher numbers than we did over this period, that is still disproportionately high, given that Beloit is only 22% of the county population. We continue to be concerned about the fact that over half of the cases in Beloit are impacting those who identify as Hispanic or Latino, and 22% were African American. Our minority populations are being disproportionately impacted by this disease. And just this evening, I received new information that in Wisconsin, the cases since Thursday alone have increased 2,323 and 58 in Rock County alone, a roughly 5% increase in just a few days' time. In summary, COVID-19 continues to spread and vulnerable populations are particularly susceptible. Currently, there is no fully reliable cure, vaccine, or widespread immunity known as herd immunity. As a result, I recommend adoption of Resolution 2020-103 to maintain minimum safety precautions as a requirement in the city of Beloit. The city will continue to limit gatherings of a maximum of 25 people in city-owned facilities and spaces, including parks. And regardless of when a permit may have been pulled, the city reserves the right to cancel any event in our public-owned facilities and spaces to minimize the potential spread of this disease. At this time, I stand for any questions that councilors may have.
Can I please have a motion?
Lori, this is Mrs. Borbeck.
I apologize,
I do have a
Nancy.
question.
I believe that Council President was going to call for a motion first. I apologize, I misspoke.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Can I please have a motion to approve the resolution, please?
Counselor
Counselor
Blakely,
Keith.
I so move.
I couldn't tell who it was. Okay. Counselor Forbeck made the motion and second by Counselor Blakely. Now we'll take questions, comments from counselors, beginning with Vice President Anderson. Vice President Anderson, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No, I do not.
Counselor Blakely, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
I just want to say it is super important that we all continue to be as safe as we can possibly be. The pandemic is alive and well, and we need to be watching out for it. So I'm definitely in favor of all we are doing as a city to help keep us safe.
Counselor Forbeck, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
I do have a question. I was reading our, I think, very well written prevention and control response to the COVID-19. And my question or suggestion maybe would be that we should mention masks. I know myself from going around, there are so often some of our restaurants are just doing a fabulous job. All their staff have masks, but in other places that's just not the case. And I'm wondering, Lori or somebody else, if you could respond to my concern with that.
Certainly. In the proposed ordinance, which is consistent, in the proposed resolution, which is consistent with the prior resolutions that the council has passed, we refer to physical distancing precautions and protective measures. And as a form of explanation, our requirement in the city of Beloit is that all individuals must either remain within 6 feet of one another or other protective measures must be taken. Those may include a mask or a face covering. It may include plexiglass. It may include, those are the ones that come immediately to mind. But that is why we didn't simply say a mask because if you're able to maintain a 6-foot distance in each direction, that is sufficient. However, if under any circumstance you cannot, then masks must be required or some other protective device such as plexiglass, which is what some businesses are doing at checkout areas, etc. So we wanted to be sure that all of those were included and referred to. And I would remind the councilors and the public at large, if you have concerns about compliance, there is a COVID hotline. I would ask you to go to the city's website, call our hotline. You will likely need to leave a message, but we will get back to you in very short order, and we are investigating all complaints to ensure compliance in the city of Beloit.
Thank you, Lori. I just wanted to emphasize, having something over your face if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Forbeck. Counselor Keys, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
Just a comment and thank you for the staff for the continued work and prioritizing the health and safety of the community. It is quite frightening to see the surges across the country as well as in different areas of Wisconsin. I truly believe that all the efforts in Wisconsin earlier on, as well as the local efforts that we've had in place, have really helped with us see the trending down that we have had. But I appreciate that The surges are nearby and numbers are trending up. So I really want to caution and encourage everyone to continue to do everything you can to protect yourself as well as family, neighbors, and community with wearing masks and social distancing. And it really will take everyone to get through this quicker if we're able to all work together and comply. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Levy, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
Yeah, just a comment. Lori, thanks for our wonderful conversations today as it relates to this ordinance. What I want to know is there a way we can get some quick talking points for maybe churches in particular? I'm starting to even get phone calls from churches saying, when can we go back in? What are the requirements? They are looking at the resolution and there's still some fuzzy areas. And Lori and I spent majority of the day dealing with that with a couple of churches, getting them to understand when they can go back in, what they must have to do once they start meeting again. So I don't know, Lori, do you think we may need talking points or something to simplify just for churches as they are anxious to get back into their buildings, or no?
I'd be happy to put something on the website tomorrow. I'll work with our communications director to get that out and also to send to the full council. It is a little tricky because it depends on the size of your church. And so we have to be a little bit general in our statements because the number of people that can safely be within any given space depend on the amount of space that's provided. So the rule is if you take the square footage of the sitting or standing space and divide it by 144, which is 6 feet in each direction or 12 foot squared, that will give you your maximum capacity. And that presumes that you are not requiring masks. So, but yes, we can give some general guidelines. And if there are specific cases where someone may still have some additional questions, we are keeping that COVID hotline open so we can respond to those types of questions as well.
Okay, thank you. And if you don't see where we can get it, tomorrow, I mean, that's fine. I just think we're starting to get more and more calls, and I think the longer, this pandemic goes on, you're going to have more and more churches wondering when can we get in. Especially as I'm looking to closer to August or September, I got the feeling we're going to get a lot of them that's going to be asking questions because it's going to be starting to get too cold to be outside. So,
Thank you for your comment, Councillor Levy. Councillor Preschel, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
Well, just to be clear, outside of the data and the presentation of the data and within the resolution, this is essentially the same document that we passed in May. And there's been no substantive changes to our guidelines or recommendations or requirements, right?
That is absolutely correct. The one thing I do want to mention, and thank you for opening the door for me, is that in the past, staff has recommended that the council review the criteria every 2 weeks or at your regularly scheduled council meetings. At this point, we are recommending that these requirements be reviewed on a monthly basis because, quite frankly, we have learned that regardless of what is happening with the number of cases and the surges that we are seeing, it is highly unlikely within a 30-day period, unfortunately, that we will be seeing a vaccine or a cure, meaning a reliable treatment that can be applied to anyone who tests positive, or to immunity, or seeing the disease die out. And knowing that that is the reality that we're facing, these very minimum basic safety precautions, in my opinion and the opinion of staff and of health experts, is that these are the requirements that we need to keep in place for the foreseeable future, and that evaluating on a monthly basis is more than sufficient.
Okay. Thank you, Lori.
But that's an agenda let me clarify, that's an agenda thing, that we would place it on the agenda for review? Or is that a change in the language, so we're not gonna look at it? I didn't pull up the details here, I can.
So it's at the end of the resolution where it is remaining in effect until August 3rd, which is the date, it would actually be technically August 4th, which is the date following the next
Okay.
council meeting, so that if circumstances do not substantially change, the council has an opportunity on August 3rd to continue or extend this resolution as it is done in the past. So that is,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, Lori, for
Yeah, I
clarifying.
missed that. I missed that date change. You know, like everybody else, I'm having trouble keeping track of what day it is. Okay,
Understood.
thank you, Lori.
Understood.
Thank you, Councilor Preschel. And thank you, Lori, for clarifying that. I just want to mention that we've all received a lot of calls from the business owners, so I'm very glad that you explained the COVID process like you did tonight. And I also want members of the public to know that they can feel free to go to our website for regular updates and information. And I would just like to encourage people to please stay at home, social distance, and wash your hands. At this time, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. I will now ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Vice President Anderson.
Aye.
Councillor Blakely.
Aye.
Councillor Forbeck.
Aye.
Councillor Keys.
Aye.
Councillor Levy.
Aye.
Councillor Preschel.
Aye.
President Duncan.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Moving back up the agenda to the consent agenda.
Would any counselor at this time like anything removed from the consent agenda? Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, including items 6A through 6K? Is there a motion at this time?
Councillor Keys, so move.
Motion by Councilor Keys. Is there a second?
This is
Nancy
Preschel.
Forbeck, second.
A second by Councilor Preschel. At this time, there's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Are there any questions or discussion? I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Vice President Anderson.
Aye.
Councillor Blakely.
Aye.
Councillor Forbeck.
Aye.
Councillor Keys.
Aye.
Councillor Levy.
Aye.
Councillor Preschel.
Aye.
President Duncan.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. There are no licenses on the agenda this evening, so moving on to item 8A is an ordinance, consideration of ordinance number 3681, amending section 18.02, sub 10B1 of the Code of General Ordinances related to park hours.
At this time, we'll have our Public Works Director, Laura Williamson, to provide us with an overview.
Good evening. I have before you an ordinance that would change the hours of Riverside and Wooten Parks when it is open to the public. Staff, both in Parks and Recreation along with our police department, is recommending the consideration by our counselors to change the hours from sunrise to 10 p.m. instead of sunrise to 12 a.m. The only exception would be when the Rotary Center or the Harry Moore Pavilion are rented for special events. And then at that point, Riverside Park would remain opened until 12 a.m., but only in those exceptions. We are requesting this to enhance public safety at the parks and to be in consistency with the rest of our parks. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. This is a first reading. Can I please have a motion to hold over the ordinance? Is there a motion to hold over the
Nancy
ordinance?
Forbeck, I so move.
Moved by Councilor Forbeck. Is there a second?
Vice President Anderson, I'll second.
seconded by Vice President Anderson. At this time, there's a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Is there any discussion? I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Madam President, this is Councillor Blakely.
Go ahead, Councilor Blakely.
Madam President, may I go ahead? It's Sherry.
You may go ahead.
Thank you. It may be a silly question for Laura Williamson. Does park closure include cars that may drive in and park to look along the river?
Yes, it does.
Would it include them? It does include them?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from any other counselors before I move forward?
I think I asked this in an email earlier, but I was concerned about, somebody riding their bike along the path from, downtown, say, to home, and taking advantage of that. It's after 10 o'clock. They're just heading out. I know there's been a couple of people that work downtown at different times and rode their bikes home and stuff, because I would see them. Even I've done it a couple times. But is that going to affect that kind of use of the park or the path that's in the park?
If I may, this is City Manager Luther. Yes, it would, and we understand the potential difficulty of that, but we believe that the public safety concerns that have been raised outweigh that particular concern.
Thank you, City Manager Luther. Are there any other counselors with any questions or comments before I move forward?
Yes, Nancy Forbeck.
Go ahead, Councilor Forbeck.
Does COVID have something to do with this, with people gathering like they like to do, with the cars in the parking lot? I mean, is that part of the reason that this is being done?
City Manager Luther, can you please answer that?
Thank you. Yes, that is part of the concern, and we are finding that particularly young people who may feel invincible are wanting to gather with their friends, and I feel for them. I really am sympathetic to their sense of feeling cooped up. But as you can see from the data we just shared, it simply is not safe for people to be gathering in large groups. We know that it is happening in our public parks, and that is one of the very reasons that we are making this recommendation to you this evening.
Thank you, Lori. I totally agree with you. Everybody wants this over, but it's not going to get over until we do these things. Thank you.
Are there any other counselors with questions or comments? Again, I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Vice President Anderson.
Aye.
Councilor Blakely.
I'm sorry to insert this here, but I had thought this was a first reading. Are we voting to hold it over for a vote?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, could you clarify this for
The
me?
motion is to lay over to the next regular meeting, which will be July 20th.
Thank you for clarifying. May I vote now then?
Yes, please.
Aye.
Councilor Forbeck.
Aye.
Councilor Keys.
May we go down and come back?
Councilor Levy.
Aye.
Councilor Preschel.
Aye.
President Duncan.
Aye.
Councilor Keys.
We may have some technical
Councilor
difficulty.
Keys, would you like to, you can maybe text the city manager with your vote for the record, otherwise that does pass unanimously.
Thank you, Clerk Sattler.
Item 8B is consideration of ordinance number 3677, creating section 15.06 sub 4B3 of the Code of General Ordinances for the city of Beloit relating to alcohol consumption and possession on streets and other public places. This is first reading with a request to suspend the rules for a second reading.
City Manager Luther will now provide an overview for us.
So I really have to commend staff for working creatively with our downtown restaurants and businesses to find a way for them to expand their seating capacity, knowing that it's simply not as safe to have people sitting in close proximity. And if you're a restaurant and dining, haven't figured out how to do that without a mask, or with a mask on, rather, shall I say. So we know that in those circumstances, people have to be distanced from one another. And some of our restaurants are relatively small. So as an alternative, we are proposing the alfresco experience. And this allows the restaurants to apply for an extension of premise, so that an identified area into the street on Grand Avenue. This would incorporate restaurants such as Trucked, Zen, Lucy's, I'm forgetting one. In any case, you know the general vicinity that I'm referring to. The idea is to give them the ability to spill into the street on Friday and Saturday nights only, and for other retail establishments to do the same if they so choose. This is not a street party. This is not street dance. There will not be live music. There will not be open containers being carried down the street. What this is an extension of those individual businesses and restaurants into the street in defined areas so that more people can sit outside. Hopefully, we don't have a lot of 90-degree evenings. I enjoy Wisconsin when it cools down at night. But the idea is to provide an opportunity for both our visitors and our residents to be able to safely dine and to safely have retail experiences that doesn't require being in close spaces close to one another. So we are providing this as a partnership with those businesses in conversation with them. This is a first reading. The reason we are requesting a second reading is because these businesses are imploring us to move forward as quickly as possible. If this is approved tonight, it would then be sent for publication, but that wouldn't actually occur until next Tuesday, the 14th, after which it would become effective on the 15th, and as the Alcohol Committee meets for the extension of premises, it would then be consistent and compliant with an existing policy of the council. So that's a very high level. I'll be happy to entertain questions after a motion is received.
Thank you, City Manager Luther. Is there a motion to suspend the rules to allow first and second reading?
Vice
Nancy
President
Forbeck, I so move.
Okay, moved by Councilor Forbeck and a second by Vice President Anderson. Is there any discussion? Now we'll go down the list of councilors.
Yeah.
Vice President,
Sorry.
just a moment, please. We're going to go down the list and go through each and take comments and questions from each councilor, beginning with Vice President Anderson. Vice President Anderson, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
Just once again, thank you, staff, for being innovative and dealing with everything going on during the COVID-19 crisis. I've seen other cities do this, and I'm glad we're doing it too. So that's all I have.
Councilor Blakely, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
Yes, thank you. My question relates to the accessibility of the restaurants and bars when the street is closed to vehicle traffic. I understand that this is going to be done with an eye on providing for the Americans with Disabilities Act. But how will that be accomplished if people cannot drive in that block?
So I'm going to just take a moment to remind you that the motion that you're discussing and voting on right now is simply to suspend the rules. And I would be happy to answer that in a moment when we get to the merits of the motion.
Oh, thank you, City Manager Luther. I don't have any discussion about suspending the rules.
Thank you, Councilor Blakely. Councilor Forbeck, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No, I do not.
Councilor Keys, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion? Councilor Levy, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No, I don't.
Councilor Preschel, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
have a comment that because we are oftentimes concerned with how suspending the rules, can come back and, surprise us. But this is clearly a case where we need to do that. And so I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
And actually, Councillor Preschel, if I may, you reminded me of an important point. We worked in partnership also with the Downtown Business Association. Shauna Elamine sent out 2 separate surveys to all of the DBA members soliciting their input and shared those with us throughout the process. And I also see that Councillor Keys is now visible to me, so even if I can't hear her, I can interpret nodding, and we'll try maybe once again and see if we can hear you now.
Okay. Councillor Keys, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No questions.
And we were able to hear you. Perfect.
Yes.
Yes, we could.
So at this time, there is a motion and a second to suspend the rules. I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Vice President Anderson.
Aye.
Councillor Blakely.
Aye.
Councillor Forbeck.
Aye.
Councillor Keys.
Aye.
Councillor Levy.
Aye.
Councillor Preschel.
Aye.
President Duncan.
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. We now need a motion on the merits of the resolution.
Is there now a motion to approve the ordinance?
Move approval, Levy.
Okay.
Second, please.
Moved by Councillor Levy and a second by Councillor Keys. Is there any discussion? What we will do is we'll go down the list of councilors. Vice President Anderson, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No, I do not.
Councillor Blakely, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
Yes, thank you. I understand that this will be enacted with maintaining the Americans with Disabilities Act requirements. But how will that be accomplished on the practical level for people who are physically challenged, who won't be able to drive their vehicles down the street during those times?
City Manager Luther, can you please respond to that?
Yes, thank you. So this would be handled the same way that the city handles ADA accessibility issues during the farmers market. And in fact, on Saturday, the intent is for the barricades to remain in place until the conclusion of the closure of Grand Street that evening when, I want to make sure I said the right day. So it's on Saturday when we have farmers market. And so those accessibility issues would be handled the same way. We do have a number of public parking lots that have dedicated accessible parking in the vicinity. And so we would be utilizing those same efforts. And I think that responds to your question.
Thank you. I just want to register that although I'm generally in favor of it, thinking it's a great idea, I do have my concerns, and I think I will have to get on board myself earlier when matters like this are coming along to see if I can do something special to help people in the community who are physically challenged. But thank you, City Manager Luther. That helps me out.
The other thing I forgot to mention, if I may, is that I believe all of these restaurants have rear entrances, and that there's access to those rear entrances, for those individuals. So if they are physically trying to enter the public space in the street that will be open, it may be closer for them if they are parking on the edge, but there are also those accessible locations in the rear or in some cases on the side of those facilities.
Thank you very much for that reminder.
Thank you. Councillor Forbeck, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No, I do not. Thanks.
Councillor Keys, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
No questions. Thank you.
Councillor Levy, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
Just a quick one here. City Manager Luther, I'm glad you explained it the way you did. Great job, because there was some confusion out there. I got a message over the weekend saying we're going to be passing something that was going to restrict bars and restaurants from getting additional patrons. So I'm glad the way you explained it. So I don't know if there's some confusion in the business world down there by doing this, but I'm glad you clarified it. So I just wanted to say nice job, but I know that's out there, and I don't know how widely it is out there, but yeah, that just came to me over the weekend, so.
Councillor Preschel, do you have any questions or discussion on the motion?
Well, yeah, I do have a question about awareness of parking, as Lori mentioned earlier in her remarks. Most of these parking spaces that are going to be lost are spaces that those restaurants and bar patrons use anyway. So it's not really any loss to those businesses. But, they may not even know that there's parking behind them or how to get there. And so my concern is signage, staging of signage and stuff so that people know in advance what to anticipate and where to find that parking in the rear type stuff, arrows and whatever. In fact, one of the comments made 3 or 4 years ago in the parking study was that our parking lots are poorly marked, that people that aren't living here may not know there's a parking lot there unless by the time they, before they go out and buy it and missed it altogether. But, and this was voiced to me by concerns from other businesses that are still open at that time of night, the stores over on State Street, that, they're going to lose their customer parking because people will just shift over there because they don't know to go park behind Hatley's Pub or Flying Pig because they don't realize they can. And likewise behind the Phoenix building or over at the Mill Street parking lot with that little parking space next to Bushel and Peck by the gantry. So my concern would be the logistics of staging this and making sure the signage is clear, and so that they could have some, make it easier for people to navigate around the sudden obstructions. Okay, that was just my comment. I think that's something that's going to have to be dealt with, and I'm not opposed to any of this because of it. It's just that something to be aware of.
Thanks for your comments, Councilor Preschel. And I just want to thank the staff and our city manager for all their hard work on this. And I'm thankful that you clarified this is not a street dance. And I think you may have some remarks to add. Go ahead, City Manager Luther.
Just in conclusion, we will be working with the Downtown Business Association and with Shauna. They are really the best poised to put information about where parking is available for both farmers market and for this particular event. I just want to be clear, we weren't anticipating putting any additional signage for parking for the special event because we do not have staff that's dedicated to putting those up and taking it down for the short term that it would be in effect. And so we are working specifically with the downtown businesses that are benefiting from having this additional exposure in the street. Geronimo Hospitality, as an example, is going to be removing the barricades each evening. They each know that they are responsible for their individual areas, for litter, and for any garbage collection that may need to happen. We've had a great deal of positive partnership and interaction, but I did want to manage expectations in regard to the parking piece. And I think that would probably be best addressed by the DBA through their website. And I think they've got a pretty good markup of what spaces are going to be utilized for what businesses. And that will be updated once those particular businesses go through the process, if needed, for extension of premise so they can serve alcohol to seated patrons in those locations.
Thank you, City Manager Luther. At this time, there's a motion and a second to suspend the rules. I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
I just want to clarify that this is actually on passing the ordinance, so not to, we already voted on the suspend the rules, so this motion is to adopt the ordinance as presented. Vice President Anderson.
Aye.
Councillor Blakely.
Aye.
Councillor Forbeck.
Aye.
Councillor Keys.
Aye.
Councillor Levy.
Aye.
Councillor Preschel.
Aye.
President Duncan.
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you for that clarification, Clerk Sadler.
You bet. Item 9 is appointments, and there are none. And item 10 is counselor activities and upcoming events.
Okay. Also with that said, we're also going to add committee reports on there. So if any counselors have any committee reports they'd also like to talk about, they can certainly do that. We'll begin with Vice President Anderson.
Thank you. Just first off, I hope everyone had a safe and happy 4th. I know COVID-19 made the holiday different, but I hope it was still good regardless. Last week, I attended an intersectional pride event. The attendees chalked the names of those who were murdered because of their identities. And I also appreciated that attendees socially distanced and wore masks. And also there are a number of speakers who talked about the importance of celebrating pride. I've also been volunteering the last several weeks at the Beloit Farmers Market. Just want to give a shout out to Councillors Preschel and Keys for volunteering last week. It's definitely appreciated that we have a lot of people coming out and volunteering to help us make that as effective as possible. And I'd also like to remind committee members that we still have a lot of various committees open, and I would strongly encourage all of you to get out and apply. You can go on the City of Beloit website for vacancies and also look at what committees are currently vacant. Also, just a couple upcoming things. We do have an election coming up on August 11th. You can get your absentee ballots now by going to myvote.wi.gov. It's important that we get involved in every election. And you can also make sure that you have not only your absentee ballot for August 11th, but for the November election as well. The last thing I will mention about upcoming events is the homeless street count is coming up on Wednesday, July 22nd. It's at 11:55 p.m. And yes, that's right, p.m. at Echo. It's really important that we get out and count how many homeless people are out there. And this will be the first count we've had since the COVID crisis. So I'm really curious to see what those numbers may look like. Finally, just really wanted to give a special congratulations to our council president, Regina Duncan. She recently won the Beloit Daily News Lawrence A. Raymer Headliner Award. All of us on the council are very proud of you, and I know many of us in the community are also very excited for you. So congratulations, Regina.
Thank you, Vice President Anderson. Next, Councilor Blakely.
Yes, President Duncan, congratulations. You deserve the award. You work very hard. So I'm echoing Vice President Anderson with that. And I wanted to thank you for presenting such a good, strong, representing the council with such a good, strong presence in our community. I've heard from residents on Milwaukee Road near the intersection of White Avenue and Milwaukee Road with their concerns about the extra traffic in the residential area of Milwaukee Road while White Avenue is being repaired. And the engineering department responded to my request for more information on that. And through Jason Dupuis, the assistant city manager, who I believe, Laura Williamson, is the project manager, he told me that after their department received questions and queries from residents, they spoke directly to the construction company who installed additional signage, and also with the cooperation of the police department in dealing with truck drivers who are doing their best to follow the posted detour, so that they have noticed that there's been a decrease in truck traffic in the residential area of Milwaukee Road in the last few days. Also, the contractor's working very hard out there in that heat to finish the work on White Avenue, and it's expected to be completed by the end of this month. So there's good news for us. Secondarily, I want to urge everybody to stay safe, not only from COVID, but right now from the extreme heat that we've been having. Beloit Public Library serves as a cooling center for our community. They really are improving the quality of life for our local residents by offering their place, which they're working very hard to keep clean and have it follow social distancing guidelines and so on. You can go there and take advantage of their air conditioning. Monday through Thursday during regular library hours from 9:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Fridays and Saturdays from 9:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Please keep in mind your neighbors, friends, and relatives who might be especially vulnerable to heat stroke and other heat-related problems. Those who live alone, people who are physically challenged, or the elderly can especially fall victim to the effects of the high heat and humidity. They might need your help, and they might be shy about reaching out, so think of them too and give them a call. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Blakely, for those kind words. Next, Councilor Forbeck.
Yes, I'd just like again to say thank you. I know when I was at the Chamber of Commerce and at the Convention and Visitors Bureau, I used to talk about areas of excellence in Beloit. And I'm proud to say that one of the areas of excellence right now are a lot of the programs that are being done by the city of Beloit. I'm very happy about the reopening of our swimming pool, and it's going to be with safety measures there. And also, I couldn't be more pleased than with the place on Summit Avenue and Vernon Avenue Park. The what do you call it? Not the bubblers. Anyway, the kids can walk and they have water to walk through, and
Splash pads.
it's really, really very excellent. So thanks, Lori and everybody, and Laura, and everyone who's had something to do with that.
Thank you, Councilor Forbeck. Councilor Keys. Councilor Keys.
I don't have any specific, my committee has not met, the Parks, Recreation, and Conservation Advisory Commission, but thank you to Councilor Forbeck for highlighting that the pool is going to be opening, and the reservations, the pool will open on Thursday, July 9th, and with reservations for 1 hour and a half sessions. And so with safety measures in place, information can be found on the city website as well as the Facebook site. And I'm also very excited about the splash pads that we will have available. So thank you. Also, thank you to Councilor Blakely for highlighting the importance of taking precautions in the heat. With heat illness can be very serious and life-threatening. So I'm very thankful the library is available as a cooling place. And just really quick to highlight the symptoms of heat illness. It can include, but not limited to, heavy sweating, cold, pale, clammy skin, a fast heart rate, nausea, vomiting, muscle cramps, tiredness, weakness, dizziness, headache, agitation, and it can also exacerbate respiratory illnesses. So please check on your loved ones and take advantage of the cooling spaces. And as far as my specific events, in June, on the 22nd, I attended Courageous Conversations Surrounding Racial Justice. And so other counselors were also present, and it was a terrific community discussion. And then I enjoyed the working at the farmers market, and I very much appreciated the work as far as the precautions to keep everybody safe, especially the masks that we had available and the hand sanitizer. And then today I was able to attend virtually the League of Women Voters conversations surrounding SROs with Chief Z, and that was another great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Keys. Councilor Levy.
No report.
Councilor Preschel.
I'd just like to give staff a big shout out for coming up with all these innovative things and trying to streamline the processes for the community and to do things and work things out a little differently than we're used to and make those adaptations. I just can't imagine what having to go through this would have been like 30 years ago with some of the stuck in the mud council people we had back then. But anyway, I enjoyed working at the volunteering at the farmers market. It's a great way to get a tan, and they're doing a good job. It keeps evolving every week. It keeps getting a little better, a little change here, a little change there, trying to work this out and have the best farmers market we can, considering the circumstances. And it's important to remember that we only got 2 people working in the DBA doing this, and they don't have any seasonal help this year yet or anything. They're just the 2 of them. And so when I saw that we were going to have al fresco in the street, I thought, how can those guys do that? They got enough to do already. So anyway, really good job, and really good job on the pool and the golf course, and putting the priorities out there where people need to see it in the parks and stuff. So thanks a lot to staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Preschel. And now my report. I want to begin by echoing with Vice President Anderson and ask that you please consider serving on one of our city committees, because we are always looking for talented people. And the committees are as follows. We have the Alcohol Beverage License Control Committee, and there's 2 openings. We have the Appointment Review Committee, there's 1 opening. Then there's the Board of Appeals, there's 3 openings. And then the Board of Review, there's 3 openings. The Equal Opportunities Commission, there's 1 opening. And the Landmarks Commission, there's 2 openings. So if you're interested, please call the Executive Assistant Pam Lathrop at 608-364-6614. Next, I want to announce that we have lost some strong champions of our community, Mrs. Evelyn O'Kelly and Mr. James Farragher. They will truly be missed for their spirit, genuine caring, volunteerism, and dedication to the city of Beloit. Let's keep their families in our thoughts and prayers. Also, I want to give special thanks to the Downtown Beloit Association, Department of Public Works, all city staff and partners who've been working to beautify the downtown and our entire city. It's really looking amazing. So, if you haven't had a chance, I encourage you to please drive around to admire how beautiful our city looks and the projects that are happening. And speaking of projects, the Greater Beloit Chamber of Commerce did a wonderful job putting together the 93rd annual Zoom meeting. The topic was Reinvesting Together. Quint Stutter was the speaker for the event, who gave a great presentation about enhancing our community efforts. Then, after that came the awards ceremony. Congratulations to the Chamber Award recipients for this year. They were Jeff Klatt. He received the Ken Hendricks Spirit Award. Geronimo Hospitality, the Large Business of the Year Award. Walnut Creek Apparel and Gifts, the Small Business of the Year Award. And the Paulette Christensen Ambassador of the Year Award was presented to Graham Wilson. And I can't begin to tell you how truly honored that I was to receive the 2020 Lawrence A. Raymer Headliner Award from Bill Barth and the Beloit Daily News. And it was even more special because I received it with Tim McKern. So, heartfelt thanks and appreciation to everyone who made this possible. I am humbled by all the positive calls and emails from people that heard my speech. So in closing tonight, I've decided to share it this evening. Thank you to Bill Barth and the Beloit Daily News for this prestigious honor. I am extending my heartfelt thanks to all my family, friends, mentors, and colleagues who've always believed in me. Without you, I would not be who I am today. I was totally surprised when I found out that I had been nominated to receive the Headliner Award for this year. It is humbling to be among award recipients such as Stephanie Klatt, Jim Caldwell, Dr. Reverend Floyd Prude, and Ken and Diane Hendricks. It's a privilege to be acknowledged for working hard and doing something that I'm passionate about, helping others in our great city of Beloit. Each year that I have attended the headliner banquet, the award winner has a message. And I hope that what I share today will stay in your head and in your heart forever. It's very simple. I ask that you embrace diversity. Each day I live my life trying to be a positive example for girls, women, and people of color by serving on numerous boards and committees, and now in a leadership role for our city and state government. I must admit, no matter what it looks like, my journey has not been easy, and I've faced significant challenges along the way. Many times, I am the only female or person of color in a room or in a meeting. For me, it's something that I have become accustomed to. However, I'm hoping in the future this will not be the norm. My hope is that we will see real change where people of color can make their voices heard. We must appreciate others who are different and encourage them to be part of the conversation. I've been given many opportunities to achieve my success, and we need to extend those same opportunities to others. We must welcome and encourage others to be part of our groups, boards, and committees, because it is crucial that we have more diverse voices represented, empowered, and ultimately heard. Please join me in paving a way for others. In diversity, there is beauty and there is strength, quotes Maya Angelou. In Beloit, we are beautiful and we are strong. So let's embrace our differences and unite as one. So I think we'll end our comments with our counselors with that. Next item.
Here, Madam
Thank you.
President.
Thank
If we
you.
were there in person, you would hear us all applauding loudly.
Ah, that's wonderful. Thank you. Next, item 11, and we'll have comments remarks from our city manager, Lori Curtis Luther.
Thank you. I just briefly wanted to do a huge shout out and thank you to our partners, the Boys and Girls Club and Community Action, because our ability to open up the splash pads, brand new, never used splash pads, is completely reliant upon their partnership and their ability to work with us. We agreed that it simply isn't safe to have the splash pads turned on and available at all times to the public because kids, I know mine in particular, don't understand the social distancing, and we want to make sure that we can provide a safe opportunity to stay cool and have fun. So staff at Boys and Girls Club and Community Action with leadership from both of the directors are working some programming to have available, and as soon as we have more information about what those hours of service and how to register to participate in one of those programs, we will absolutely have that on our website. And I also wanted to just make a mention. We are very hopeful about our ability to have the pool open Thursdays through Sundays, but I did want to make one comment. We are completely reliant on our very limited number of full-time staff and a large number of seasonal employees in order to make this work safely. We have 90-minute increments that will be scheduled ahead of time with a 30-minute period in between each to ensure that we have time to sanitize any spaces that can be used and really do this in a very safe fashion. I wanted to just present the possibility that if we should have, for some reason, staffing shortages, it is possible that we might have to adjust and be flexible, which I must say our staff has been learning how to do better than we ever thought possible over this period of time. And again, we are very hopeful that we'll be able to maintain that Thursday to Sunday schedule of hours, but we will adjust as we need to. Our first priority, as always, is to make sure that we can have a very safe environment, and we will make sure to get any adjustments that are required along the way out to the public, and certainly would be on our website and through other modes of communication. So again, a huge shout out to our partners. And lest I forget, just as the election wouldn't have been possible without the YMCA and Ann Haskin and her leadership, we're now really just thrilled with the partnership that we continue to have with Community Action and Boys and Girls Club. Thank you.
Next, we'll have 12 reports from boards and city officers.
12A was moved up on the agenda, so 12B, the city council may adjourn into closed session in the first floor conference room pursuant to section 1985 sub 1E to deliberate or negotiate the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specific public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. The council will not reconvene into open session.
At this time, may I please have a motion to go into closed session?
Councillor Blakely, so moved.
Moved by Councillor Blakely. Is there a second?
Vice President Anderson, I'll second.
Second by Vice President Anderson. Any discussion? I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Vice President Anderson.
Aye.
Councillor Blakely.
Aye.
Councillor Forbeck.
Aye.
Councillor Keys.
Aye.
Councillor Levy.
Aye.
Councillor Preschel.
Aye.
President Duncan.
Aye.
Now in closed session.
Okay. We're going to turn off the lines now, and this ends our meeting for this evening.
Thank you so much for allowing me to.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.